So guys, it's time to sit back and relax now with your favorite cocktail. What I just made was a delicious cocktail called the Rakefire. If you like a peaty whiskey, but occasionally you like a little sweetness, little flavor, recommend the Rakefire. Go look it up on Google. You will thank me later. All right, so let's talk Trackday, Road America, what we learned about the bike. Some things I just want to point out. There's not a lot to point out, but I will talk through some things. So sit back and enjoy this little short video. And I've learned some things, and maybe you will too. Enjoy. All right, so one of the first things I want to talk about is sound like a broken record, don't I? But the forks and especially the rebound damping. We had recently tried to go to a slightly, so let me rewind. I'd already changed out the fork oil to a 10-weight oil, and that helped, but I was still at the very last click of the rebound damping setting to achieve like a single stroke back. That's what we're doing when we're trying to check the rebound. We don't want multiple cycles of the fork when it comes back to the top. We want it to come back smoothly and just settle. So we kind of achieved that with a previous fork oil change, but what I wanted to do was experiment and try a slightly even thicker oil to see if that would give me any more range of adjustment, because I was right at the end of the rebound adjuster. What I found with the even thicker oil was, and I think, let me just caveat that by saying that if you hadn't watched the video, let me turn the light on a bit. There we go. If you hadn't watched the video when we did that, you'll know that I removed the top caps so that I could measure correctly the oil level in the fork. And that did change slightly the positioning and the action of the rebound clicks, because each click, obviously, I'm not going to move it yet because I want to make a point in a second, but obviously each click is, what is it, half a turn at least, each click? So I think when you get right down to that last little adjustment on this standard damper rod, that's kind of where we're working with on the standard damping adjuster. We're right at that last little bit. Anyway, long story short, what I want to show you is that, and the internet will scream at you if you do this. So this right now, sorry, I'll get you in shot. This adjuster is all the way in. Like if I try and turn this even more to the right, there's resistance. And I'll show you if I click back off one. So it's like a quarter of a turn. And what I found was that I really needed that last quarter turn, like that, to get the adjustment that I wanted. And there's no further even movement of the clicker. So I'm at the very last position, and that last position is really at that resistance point. You know, I can't turn it any further without causing, you just can't further turn that. So my last click, that's off one click, and that's back on one click. There's no further movement to go. So I'm right at the end of the adjustment again, even with the thicker fork oil. Now, that gave me, when you do that kind of bouncy test, that gave me the result I wanted. It came back and just did one fall back down and settled. But I've still got nowhere to go. So the answer is, I think, long story short, if we want finer damper control, we have to accept what everybody else has accepted, that the internals of these forks need to be changed. So that may be coming up in a winter video. There's no rush for me. At this point, I'm not going to be back on track this year in 2024. So we've got the winter to think about that, think about how we're going to do that. Anyway, so otherwise, let me just caveat. So even though I am right at the end, there's no further even movement to go at. The front end actually felt really, really, really nice at Road America. Now, the track is a smoother track than Black Hawk Farms, which is where the first Trackday was taken. But still, I felt really good with the front end of the bike. So let me recap some of the changes we did. We lowered the fork top position. We are actually very, very slightly under the edge of the top yoke. We've actually pushed these through. And if you remember, that actually increases our trail and helps us with stability on the bike. So that's just a reminder, that's where we are with that. So I think that may have helped as well with the stability of the bike, as well as a smoother track. But yeah, that's the front end of the bike. And again, the braking was really, really good. Had absolutely no issues with braking. If you remember, we've done an ABS bypass on this. We're running the braided lines. Braking was excellent, great consistency, great power. Had no issues with braking on track yet again. So that's really good and very positive. Let's talk about the tires then. So the slick tires, these are what I used in the afternoon. There's no great stories to tell about them. So I ran these slightly under the pressure that is quoted by the manufacturer. Why would I do that? Number one, it was a cooler day, so I want to make sure that the temperatures stay in the tire. So running those pressures slightly under helps us keep these at temperature. These were a used set of tires. Okay, so I was kind of the second user on these, and I just wanted to make sure that I'm maintaining as much grip as I can. The other reason is that you never know if, unless you calibrate it on the morning of the day, you don't know if your pressure gauge is ultimately accurate. So I always err, is that the right way of saying it? I always tend to go slightly under what I want the readings to be, just in case my pressure gauge is off and it's reading, slightly wrong. I don't want higher pressures. If anything, I want slightly lower pressures. So that's why I go under pressure. The result of which, if I take you back here, I think ultimately, as you can see, we've got quite a relatively, I don't know if you can see it, but a relatively heavy debris field of rubber on the tire. So it's quite possible that these were running a little hot, perhaps, and we were getting a little bit of hot tear. So this tear here that you can see, that already existed on the tire. It was a used tire. Whoever used it before generated that tear in it. And I don't think I really was significantly bearing down on that part of the tire. I'm very easy on the accelerator, on the throttle. But as you can see, this area where I'm right on the edge of the tire, especially in that carousel corner, it may have gotten extra hot, and that's maybe why we've got this debris field coming towards the edge. But what else you'll notice is that I'm not right. There's a clear section right at the edge of the tire. And if you remember a conversation I had, it's kind of what I wanted really, because the standard profile tire, which is over there, I'm right at the edge of that because the profile is shallower. And when we're right banked over, we want to actually keep a section of tire in contact. We don't want to run over the lip or the edge of the tire. So this shows me that this is kind of what I wanted. I wanted a profile that was sharper, and that's keeping me on that grip level right here on the edge and not running over the shoulder of the tire. So that's kind of a positive thing. It's showing us that. So yeah, I might have run it, these might have been running a little hot. Again, it was a cooler day, so, you know, I might just be overthinking this a little bit, but still, I just wanted to cover that off. Otherwise, the tyres felt really, really good, and obviously gave me enough confidence to get it cranked over and get us on the elbow down. So again, no complaints. One of the issues that we experienced on the Trackday was with the gearbox. So, and I need to go and do some more Googling on this, but I was finding that clicking into 5th gear for like when I was coming onto those faster straights, get it into 5th gear, and then it would jump out after like 2 or 3 seconds. I would, you know, the engine revs would jump up. I'd soon realize that, and I have to click again to get it to stay in 5th until I changed up to 6th. That was the only time that it did that, from 5th gear, finding a false neutral and then having to go back up again. Now, I don't know if there's any major solutions to that really yet. I don't know. I need to go, like I say, I need to go and do some research. It's a funny thing really, because it's kind of a good gear to do it if you are going to do that, because you're already getting close to the maximum speed of the bike. There might have been another 10 mile an hour when you click into 6th available. So, you know, you're not just suddenly stopping on track. That's not happening. You're still carrying momentum. You're still carrying that speed. You just need to get it back in again to carry on. There are things that you can buy that apparently help the shifting by supporting this rod here. It kind of bolts over here somewhere, and then there's like a collar that runs on that shaft. I don't know if that truly helps with the situation, but it's something that might be there that we can use. Who knows? All right, I'll come back in 1 second. All right, so this really isn't a issue with the bike. Look at all these flies on here. This she deserves a nice wash some point this weekend. But I just want to talk about cameras briefly. So this camera did its job perfectly good. Very pleased that it managed to capture my escapades in the carousel corner. This camera that I bought, which the small part of which ran in my helmet, I'm very pleased with the simplicity of using this, to be fair, but I'm a little bit restricted by the resolution when it comes to editing, because I do it all on this phone. This phone that I'm talking to you now on, I did the entire edit of that Trackday video on this phone. But it takes a while because, number one, the phone's slow, and it's obviously a bit more complicated, or you have to do it in sections rather than you could do it on a PC and do the whole thing in one go. I'm not really complaining about it. What I'm saying is that I'm restricted in the resolution. If you're expecting like 4K videos out of me, then just bear that in mind, that I'm struggling to do that right now because I'm using this old phone and the files are really quite big once you go to like 2.7K or 4K, etc., etc. And it just literally exponentially increases the time that it takes me to edit any videos if I don't use 1080p. So if you've been watching my videos and you're like, oh, it's not very clear, it's not like 4K and all that sort of stuff, then that's the reason why. I am going to try next time, whenever that is, I'll bump up the resolution, and between now and next year, I'll hopefully have something better to edit the videos on than this old phone. So that was just one thing to know. And I realized that the angle, when it points out the helmet, isn't the greatest because it cuts off the very, like, you know, if we think about the track, it cuts off the very end of the straight that we're trying to aim at, you know. So I realized that, and what I'm hoping for is to get a different helmet for next year with a wider aperture that will give us a bit of a different vision, both from the camera and from myself too. So I will try and figure that out. And yeah, so what we're going to do now to the bike, well, I guess we're going to put it back to street style, mirrors back on, number plate back on, swap the tires and wheels back to street. And I might show you one particular thing with the rear wheel that somebody had talked about in one of my other videos. So, but yeah, that's the little plan for this. But yeah, it was such a great bike, and a lot of people give the R7 hate, but honestly, it's so good on track and embarrasses a lot of other bikes. I don't know if you noticed in one of the last sessions, right at the end of my video, we were actually chasing down guys on 600s. We were chasing a guy down on an R1, like, you know, a recent spec R1. Look, I know they're not going to be the fastest riders in the world, but it just shows you, like, you don't have to be embarrassed on track to be on an R7. You can catch other riders, and, you know, if they're not up in their game, trust me, the R7 is quite capable of keeping up with others as well. All right, there's one other last little thing that I want to show you that I never talked about on camera before the track day. It was something that I did do before the track day, but anyway. So you'll see, if you can you see that how this clip-on bar, this part, it's bolted into this, but I pushed it as far as I dared whilst maintaining good clamping force from these two bolts. I pushed it as far in as I could so that the bottom edge is flush. The top edge is a few, you can see my finger there, look, is a few millimeters in on the top side, whereas the bottom side's almost flush. And I did that just to gain that extra tiny few millimeters extra width in the bars. I'm a big guy. I kind of, one of the reasons I did that is I compared two photographs. One from when we were at Black Hawk Farms, and one on my old SV race bike at my home track at Cadwell Park, UK. And one of the things I noticed was the width in my arms. What I've been trying to compare the R7 to is how comfortable I was on the SV650, or at least as comfortable as I was on the front end. I was always cramped up on my SV race bike at the back, but still, we're talking about the front end. So I tried to just get any extra width that I could from the bars to make it, again, feel a bit more like the SV650 race bike that I knew and felt like an old pair of slippers and was so comfortable. So that's what I was doing there. Just trying to get that extra whatever millimeters of width that I could get. And I think it worked out. I think it helped. So that's just another fine little point there I'm making. Okay, so one of the other things that I wanted to just quickly demonstrate, if you remember in one of my last videos I was talking about the potential geometry change when you're running a street tire with a profile of 55 to this slick which is running a profile of 65. They're both 180 specified tires, but the profile is 55 on the street, 65 on the slick. And you might think, well, what difference does that truly make to any kind of geometry of the back of the bike, you know? And I did some math, I did some calculations by measuring the circumference of each tire. And that calculation showed there was about a 30 millimeter height difference overall between this tire and this tire. And that was kind of, and one guy, bless him, commented and said, "Are you sure about that? That doesn't sound right." Let me show you. I'm sat down on the floor right now. Let me show you the height difference between the two tires. It's significant. It's hard to show on the camera, but a straight line across is like there. It's at least 25 millimeters. I calculated it as 30 millimeters, and I quite frankly believe that because that's what it looks like to me. So yes, you only get half of that as a height raise on the back of the bike when you use this, but it is something to bear in mind if you suddenly swap tires and the bike suddenly feels, you know, a little bit more unstable, then yeah, it's going to be because you're pitching the back of the bike higher by quite a considerable amount. And the top racer guys change all kinds of things with the offsets of the clamps to counteract that on the front end. Listen, I'm not at that level. I openly admit that. You know, I like to feel things that I want to feel on a bike. That's what I focus on. This change between these two tires didn't make that huge a difference to me on a track, okay? I didn't necessarily notice such a huge thing, all right? But that's because the level that I'm at versus the level that other people are at, okay? But yeah, I just wanted to show you there is definitely a significant height difference, which was measured out by my calculations. So anyway, I think that's all I've got for you in this video. There's no, you know, last time I did a track day, I was here complaining and saying things felt, you know, not great. But that last track day, everything felt really, really, really good. That doesn't mean I'm finished with tweaking anything or anything like that. There's lots of things, you know, that we develop over time. You know, at the moment, this is a street and a track bike, you know. Eventually, it may become just one of those things. Maybe just a track bike, you know. And at that point, we're talking lightweight body, fairings, trying to take as much weight out of the bike as we can, different subframes, different race seats, you know. So there's plenty for us to go at in the future. I will still be making videos as much as I can, even though winter's quiet for us, I know. But stick around. I'm sure I'll still be here churning out some videos one way or another. So thanks for watching this one. This was just a quick review of the track day. The track itself was amazing. If you've never been to Road America and you can do, go for it. It's an absolutely epic track. I'm still on a high from doing that track day. I know I was a little bit cringe at times in that video, but it was just such a great track. It felt so familiar in some ways to the tracks that I've been on in the UK. The track day ran really, really smooth. We got lots of track time, and it was just so, so good. So if you can get there, go on and do it. You'll love it. You'll enjoy it. That's my recommendation if you can. So, all right, I'm going to stop rambling now and let you get on with your lives, but just wanted to cover a few things after the track day and just say, again, thank you very much for watching. We are now at 500 subscribers. Yay! Which is great. Not that I'm doing all of this for YouTube. I do it for me and just try and show things as we go along. But thanks for watching, guys. If you can hit that like button, do it. And stick around because there's plenty more to come. Bye for now.